Churches play in government's plans. Their most influential are the churches in communities. Is there a forum for this particular matter? So what role can churches play in communities? And then Aretha Charles asks, on the biogas plant, what efforts are underway to empower black-owned SMMEs? What's the strategy in terms of implementation on renewable energy projects? That's from Aretha Charles. So empowering black-owned SMMEs in the biogas plant, as well as the role of churches in implementing government plans. Churches play a powerful role in communities, says Mgibendlovu. Peter?
All right, Vuyo, thank you very much indeed. And all right, if I could just ask our guests here at Sandton Convention Center to calm down. I know they're getting very excited with the conversation here. But a couple of questions. The first one was the role that churches, could they play a role in their communities, in your view?
Yes, thanks very much for the questions. If there's one institution that never sends a notice as to when they are meeting, it's the church. There's no notice to say there shall be a church service on Sunday. People know that this is what they do. Today, everybody knows that it is the Mothers' Union's Day, and that's why we take the churches as very important partners towards improvement of the quality of life. Yes, we have the Advisory Council of the Gauteng Provincial Government. We've got a working group of the religious sector, where they're not only dealing with moral renewal, they also are dealing with other elements that have to do with social morality, including the issues on youth, women, and people living with disability. They interact directly with the Office of the Premier. We've got Reverend Gift Muerane, who is our contact link in the province, who works with us, and they are also represented in various councils, including, for example, the AIDS Council. Secondly, the second issue was the biogas and the participation. Yes. A lot of expertise rests with international companies and so on. And we now have what the National Minister of Trade and Industry has put around local economic development. And I think localization is one of the prerequisites. And anyone who is part of that particular initiative, we do encourage them. We have established an office on renewable energy in the province. We are not only looking, we are already working on just sorting out government buildings in terms of renewable energy. We are working with the district of the West Rand, because their focus is on promoting the green economy, and together with them we have developed a database. We're working with SABC, we're working with the departments that deal with the EIAs, and we also are training SMMEs, including black-owned companies, because this is a new terrain that they have not actually been part of, and that is beginning to pay dividends. Both the Department of Economic Development, the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, as well as the Department of Finance are part of that particular process.
All right, now if you've just joined us, you're watching the latest in the series of New Age business briefings brought to you by the SABC, and we're coming to you live from the Sandton Convention Center. And you can contact us via Twitter at Mbuli Vuyo or at Peter Ndoro, or you can actually send us an email, morninglive@sabc.co.za. And in conversation here we have the Premier of the province of Gauteng, Nomvula. And as I said, this is a partnership between the TNA and the SABC, sponsored today by Transnet, and we've got a live audience here, among which is my boss, Mr. Claudio Mutsaneng, who's the Acting Chief Operations Officer at the SABC, and we'd like to welcome him as well. All right, let's go to our audience. Patricia Gumbi, table number 18, where are you?
I'm here.
There we go. Good to see you.
Yes, short question. How many women are we going to employ at CBB Sewer Networking, and when and how are you going to select them? Thank you.
Okay.
You know, Peter, when I came across Patricia, it was when I was the MEC for housing. And this is but one of the women that we can tell a story about. She was subcontracted to do plastering in the housing sector. She used to travel by train and taxis coming to the city, and she was such a bully, demanding that you guys will have to assist us in government. And where she is today, she's an established developer. Over a period of 3 years, we put her on incubation. We told her about the do's and don'ts. In fact, she is one of those people who will say, government doesn't owe me, I actually bail out government. Because she's one of those who have really done good. And she's right to raise this question. We are working with the Minister of Environmental Affairs, Minister Edna Molewa, on the Sidibeng Sewer Network project. It's quite a huge project. We would actually make sure that whatever consortium is being put together to deal with this particular project, it does actually deal with the requirements of empowerment. I can't say how many, and all I can tell you is that we've just agreed with national government that Rand Water will become our project manager, and out of that they will then put together the project implementation plan. And I want to assure you that it happens here in Gauteng that one of our major prerequisites is the benefit towards women, people living with disability, and of course the youth.
All right, okay. Thank you very much, Patricia, for that question. Let's go to table number 17, Brian Ndlovu, with the Ex-Combatants Foundation.
Thank you and good morning. I'm the CEO of Ex-Combatant Foundation. We basically look after the welfare, skills development, entrepreneurial development of ex-combatants. We also do exhumations, tracing and exhumations of cadres that died during the apartheid era in the country and outside the country. Now the question is, how is provincial government planning to assist ex-combatants, and at what pace?
Okay, so ex-combatants.
Very important question, thank you. We are working together with Deputy Minister Thabang Makwetla on finalizing the presentation of the draft legislation to Parliament for adoption, so that then once it is cleared and everything, we can then all work on costing and budgeting for the support. But whilst we're waiting for that, Gauteng has been quite forthright through my office. There's one gentleman called the advisor to the Premier, Mr. Tele Muyema, who works together with the Department of Arts and Culture, the Department of Social Development, to give the necessary support. What I would actually encourage, was in many instances we deal with individual pleas as and when they come, is to also encourage ex-combatants to be much more organized. Because there are various bodies that are coming through, and one of the things is that this demonstrates the enthusiasm that fellow South Africans want to put around this matter. And I would welcome that we work together with yourselves. We've been involved in the exhumation, in the support of families, in the reburials, because part of what we believe is that this government must actually give honor to those who have sacrificed their lives for our own emancipation.
Okay, table number 28, Trevor, if you could stand up, say where you're from as well.
Good morning, Premier.
Morning, Trevor.
My name is Trevor. I'm coming from an organization called Quafix. We are a young organization. We deal with IT and various other information technology services. Our question is, recently in 2012, we launched a foundation called Quafix Foundation, and we are focusing on young people, developing them and giving them opportunities, exposure from a career perspective and otherwise. I think what we want to know is, or what we've come to realize, is that the kids in grade 9, the subject choices that they make, you find that they affect their progress later on in life. And what we want to know, maybe from a provincial perspective, is what are you guys doing to actually ensure that the kids, when they reach grade 9, just before they go on to grade 10, they're able to make better choices for their futures?
Career guidance used not to be taken as an important subject in the education system. Thanks, Trevor, for raising that. And we believe in the province that career guidance must come from grade 8, so that then as and when learners get to 9 and 10, already you have been able to assist them. The Gauteng City Region Academy works together with the Department of Education and the Department of Economic Development on the skills pipeline. And I would advise you that you should interact with our own department to make sure that through your own programs, you are able then to deposit all the work that you are doing into the GCRA's processes. The GCRA is in the city center of Johannesburg. You can also go through their website, but you can also liaise with ourselves in the provincial office of the Premier. There's a gentleman by the name of Colin Pizzo here on table number 4 that you can also interact with him so that we can link you up with the academy. We need this kind of partnership so that we are able, all of us, to work coherently around promotion of skills development. Thank you.
Okay. We're running out of time, so there's some issues that I thought would have come up by now, and they haven't for some reason, so I'm just going to push on.
Try them.
Yes, try my luck. At the COSATU Congress, you said that women suffer often political infighting and civil wars, and you said that even within the ANC and COSATU. Is there a civil war inside the ANC?
No, I said even in civil wars,
Right.
where you find that there is conflict, that conflict is initiated by men
Yeah.
for power, for dominance, and for their own selfish interests. And those who tend to suffer more are women and children. And those who tend to be used to perpetuate conflict and divisions are women, because we have the energy and we can actually be loud-mouthed sometimes. So what we need is to begin to take the center stage and say, not in our name, and let us be heard, and even present ourselves as the alternative, so that then whilst they are fighting amongst themselves, we must actually guard against prosperity and us continuing to be victims. And that is my belief. Women in politics, in the economy, in any society, tend to be victims of every wrong that is being perpetuated by men. Patriarchy sometimes gets carried by us women without realizing that it is patriarchy. And in other instances, we think we are actually forceful and forthright, and yet we're destroying one another. We need to give support to one another. We need to put ourselves first. We need to let men bargain with us and not take us for granted that we are a voting fodder, or we are a group that will sing praise to them. And that's what I believe in.
Do you think
I believe in equality, but I also believe in the leadership and dominance of women.
Do you think then that perhaps do you think then perhaps then it's time to say, do we still need an ANC Women's League, and we should just mainstream women? Because if you're put to one side,
we actually need stronger and stronger women's organizations that must do advocacy work without them wanting to become the main body of organization. We need a strong women's league, because remember, today we talk about the Bill of Rights in the Constitution. Many people don't know that it was the Women's League that brought all other women from various political parties to say they can't sit alone in Kempton Park and not look at the Women's Charter. And we then said the Women's Charter can't be a standalone, let's have the Bill of Rights. We succeeded in that. We brought the National Conference of the ANC to a standstill. Remember, Madiba had to plead with Terra Likota when he was chairing a conference, when women were demanding 30%. We got that. We are now legislating the 50% gender parity for everybody, because we can't talk about South Africa's success on women, and yet it is the Women's League alone that's championing it. In the DA, Helen must do it. In another party, everybody must do it. Those who subscribe to the constitution of this country must actually know that gender parity is part of the cause for the emancipation of women. So I believe that we need a stronger women's league, a much more focused women's league, a much more organized women's league, a much more louder and effective women's league that can actually mobilize other formations. Because even with 1956, it was the federation, but its strength depended on the ANC Women's League.
all right, the gloves are off in terms of the leadership race. And I'm wondering, you talk about the women's voice, is it being heard in this? Who should become...
It is going to be heard.
All right.
It is going to be heard.
Who are you supporting?
We're supporting those that we believe must be given the opportunity to lead. And in this particular platform, I do believe that we need to give the opportunity to the structure. The Women's League will be meeting tomorrow. We've got the National Executive Committee. We have heard what the President of the Women's League has said, that already We have agreed on President Jacob Zuma. We've agreed on Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe. We have agreed on Secretary General Gwede Mantashe. We are now looking at these three, and these three we are going to fill with women. Watch the space tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, and then my last question before we go back to the tables. You have a history of championing the causes of the workers. You were a shop steward yourself. You must be quite concerned with the tone that the latest rounds of strikes have taken. What's gone wrong, do you think? Because we're seeing them more and more violent and more bitter.
You know, modernization sometimes destroys what you are. And I think the modernization of the trade union movement has costed this particular situation. I also believe that employers, to a certain extent, have also taken advantage of the modernization of the trade union movements to an extent where they would want to play a divide and rule. Thirdly, I think worker control has been taken too far. We are a country that is governed by the constitution and the laws of the country. There can't be other processes outside of what is being regulated and what has been legislated. What we need to do is to go back to basics and make sure that we strengthen shop floor engagement with workers. And that is what I have actually been trained and schooled on. Shop floor worker leadership is so paramount. You can't have leadership of workers outside of the shop floor. And hence we used to have localized shop stewards on site who will not be full-time and be based outside. Secondly, we also have to make sure that we follow the bargaining council processes so that then these other processes do not catch up with us. But indeed, we need total transformation in this particular sector that is affected by this. I am worried as the Premier of the province about what is happening in the west of Gauteng, because you know what? Remember where Bekesdal comes from. Remember where Kutzong comes from. As these workers are dismissed from work, none of them thinks about going to Kala. They will stay here in Bekesdal. There would now be a burden of the Gauteng provincial government, the municipality of Mirafong, of Western area in terms of water, sanitation, shelter, and so on. So we have also positioned ourselves in engaging with the Chamber of Mines, with the MEC, with organized labor and the municipality in the West Rand. And I think worker control I support, but it must be in an organized fashion. Let us review the modernization of the trade union movement, because the strength of a trade union movement is determined by worker control, but much more organized and on-site in the shop floor.
Okay, all right. Table 37, Tsepo Tlaku.
Morning, my name is Tsepo Tlaku from an organization called Junior Chamber International. We are a global network of young active citizens. We provide youth with development opportunities that empower them to create positive change. My question is whether there is an appetite from the province to work with organized young professionals and entrepreneurs in mobilizing youth to be active citizens, because I believe it's high time that we take young people as a solution, as a resource that can turn the socio-economic challenges we have in the country. Secondly, whether there is as well an appetite to ensure that we support young people to engage with others outside the country, so that we become ambassadors of our country and we position it where it's supposed to be. Thank you.
Yes, Tsepo, thanks. There is that great appetite. Please interact with MEC Kolisile, because part of youth empowerment programs are championed through his office. But all issues related to youth, women, and people living with disability are strategically located in the office of the Premier. And as I've said to the previous gentleman, there's somebody called Colin Pizzo sitting here on table 4. If you could interact with him so that we can also have a chat, I can find time to come and interact with yourself much more closer, working together with the MEC for economic development. We need that. We are a young province. One thing that we can't undermine, it's us working together with the youth for the economic freedom in their lifetime in a much more organized and responsible way, with respect.
All right. Talking about the youth, Tulani Allen Gwenya writes, Dear Premier, in January, MEC Mahlangu, Tladani Mahlangu crisscrossed Gauteng province promoting Y-Age program, which promised to train and fund 125,000 youth entrepreneurs and in turn create 1 million jobs. Today, as I write to you, Y-Age hasn't been paying employees for 3 months and retrenched employees. Most sadly, the entrepreneurship classes have been suspended indefinitely, leaving our hopes dashed and our time wasted. Can the Honourable Premier help us understand what is going on?
I hope you can now agree with me that I'm actually vindicated, that sometimes putting the middleman between us and our communities doesn't work. I do believe in that. Because yes, there are programs that are in place. There are processes where we have placed more than 65,000 of our youth into job opportunities. But what has been a challenge, it's this body called Y-Age. That was a service provider that was appointed to deal with these issues. And those that are affected were in the employ of Y-Age. I have instructed the MEC that this noble cause shall not collapse, and it has not collapsed. What we are now looking at is the contract and the relationship, because that's where many of our projects actually collapse. I feel sorry for those who are going to lose jobs and who have been retrenched by Y-Age. Unfortunately, they were not on our employ. That's why we're putting capacity in the Gauteng Development Agency and the economic propeller, so that we move these middlemen, and predominantly they are men, They are men who mess us up. We're going to remove all of those people, so that then we deal directly with the youth of Gauteng.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to a woman then. Table number 25, Miriam Bareki. Miriam, where are you? And if you could be very brief with your question, we're running out of time.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. My name is Miriam Bareki from Business Unity of South Africa. Premier, you mentioned that there is an amount set aside, invested for recruiting engineers. So I would just want to know, which is 32 million, if I got the figure correctly. If there is, so what about other services?
Yes. Not only have we recruited engineers, we've created a body shop in the Department of Infrastructure that includes engineers, project managers, and so on and so forth. Already we've got more than 200 MEC, those that have already been appointed in the Department of Infrastructure. So it's not just engineers, it's the capacity you need to drive infrastructure development. Because, you know, Peter, in many of our infrastructure projects, the bigger part of the money goes to professional fees. And you then find that professional fees escalate as and when the project is under implementation. And what do? We employ Peter from SABC to come and be a project manager for the department. He then appoints a consultant to do the project management work for him, and then they are the ones who are doing this work. And then we've got a lot of just blocks and blocks that do not actually do the delivery. So what we have done, Sisi, is exactly that. Develop a body shop of project managers, quality surveyors, engineers, financial managers who will be in-house in the province and be in a position to champion the business of infrastructure development for Gauteng. It can't be Jack van der Merwe only, who is an engineer working as a public servant, and Olas van Zyl. So we are actually building that capacity, and we found that as the best model that we should follow.
All right, Premier, we're going to have to leave it there. Ladies and gentlemen, a brilliant guest in conversation with us this morning, the Premier of Gauteng, Mrs. Nomvula Mokonyane. All right, so that's where we're going to leave it here at Sandton Convention Center, where we finished our conversation. Our next one is on Monday, and we'll be talking to the newly appointed chair of the African Union, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, another woman. I'm sure the Premier will be happy there.
And watch the space of her in a few years' time.
So join us for that conversation on Monday. From all of us here, though, thanks very much for joining us and participating. Have a great day, everybody. Goodbye.